What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at The Distance. Got a fantasy match for you guys. This one's going to be Earnie Shavers versus Mike Tyson. I'll do more next week, but I just want to do one this week. This one, during my sabbatical, I've been away for a bit. I've been watching a lot of boxing videos, and pretty much I've been looking at a lot of the older heavyweights from the 70s. I watched some old welterweight fights from the 60s. Watched some other fights from like 96, so pretty much I have a lot of ideas in my head of what to do, what fights to talk about. But this one I'm going to do Mike Tyson versus Earnie Shavers. What you have with Earnie Shavers is he was a heavyweight that many heavyweights didn't want to fight in the 70s. He had a lot, he's perhaps considered the hardest puncher in heavyweight history. But we don't know that for sure. We only hear that from people from the 70s. Like Muhammad Ali, who's fought. And Muhammad Ali, I guess you could take as someone factual because he fought, Sonny Liston, George Foreman, and Earnie Shavers. So, he's fought his fair share of power punchers. So, pretty much you could consider him in that era the hardest heavyweight puncher. We don't know yet. We pretty much don't know who the best heavyweight puncher of all time is, the hardest heavyweight puncher of all time. But for that era, for that time, you could say Earnie Shavers was the hardest heavyweight puncher. But also what you had in the 80s, on the other side, you had somebody who personified intimidation and domination. That is pretty much a lethal combination. Intimidation and domination in the earlier part of his career. That's pretty much what Mike Tyson represented. That's pretty much what he was. He was intimidating and he dominated fights, and also he knew how to fight. He was highly skilled. Pretty much he was defensive, offensive, had power in both hands, knew how to counter. Could slip punches, was quick, even quick coming forward on his feet. Pretty much you could say like with all that combined was the personified just almost the perfect fighter. He was flat-footed, but he knew how to come forward and cut off that ring. Really good upper body movement and could slip punches. Later in his career, he kind of did what the man on the other side did. He started to emphasize more on his punching power, more so than letting the knockout come to him like he did earlier in his career. So in a fight like this, Earnie Shavers wasn't the most skilled fighter. In his fights, you could tell that he emphasized mostly on punching power. He lifted weights, and when a fighter lifts weights, usually your hands become heavy after a certain period of time, and a lot of fighters that don't do like resistance and just lift weights have trouble in the long run in fights. I noticed during looking at some of the 24/7, I didn't even watch the entire series of it the last time, but I saw that Victor Ortiz was lifting weights, and in the long run, his hands will probably feel heavy. But a lot of people that are in sports do resistance exercises because, like say basketball for example, like we would have to do resistance exercises because, like when we'd do our exercise and we come back and play ball, then or doing weightlifting, the ball would feel light, but we would like with me, I would lift weights just to be able to move other people around. Back in my 280-pound days, but Earnie Shavers was a weightlifter. Getting off that topic, Earnie Shavers was a weightlifter, and he did have good stamina, but he did slow down in fights. He slowed down in fights, and he emphasized on not boxing, but hurting his opponent. He was easy to counter. He was easy to maneuver around against if you were fast on the feet. And his defense wasn't all too good. But his punches were swift. They were swift. They were very fast, and they were sharp. And they hurt. that's pretty much all you need from a power puncher. He was good at giving out punishment, and he emphasized mostly on his punching power, relied a lot on his punching power. And Mike Tyson, on the other hand, the prime of his career, he emphasized on letting the knockout come to him. You know, he came forward, he slipped shots. He would he studied all kinds of fighters with custom out old fight tapes. He studied these fight tapes and pretty much became the fighter that he was. And he would crouch down low. He would crouch down low so that the opponent would have, because he was a smaller heavyweight, so that the opponent would kind of dip down, and they would have to find the target and he would slip and come up top, and hit you with the left or right hook, or go with the hook to the body and hook up top real quick, to where opponents didn't even see it coming. And early in his career, that's what he did. Later in his career, he started to just go for the one-punch knockout rather than, slowly working his way up for the knockout. In a fight like this, I think that Mike Tyson would give it Earnie Shavers problems, because Earnie Shavers would be, standing straight up, trying to punch downward. And as he's trying to punch downward, later in the fight, his hands would come back much slower. They wouldn't come back as fast to protect himself. So I think that Mike Tyson would probably obliterate Earnie Shavers in about 5 rounds. I think he would obliterate him in 5 rounds and probably knock him the fuck out. That's just my opinion. And maybe I'm a little biased because I grew up in the Tyson era. But I just think skill-wise, Tyson was much better than Shavers. Had much better technique than Shavers, and pretty much I think he would defeat him just based on the styles. Better technique, and who knows if he punched harder. Well, even Holmes fought both Tyson and Shavers. He said Shavers punched hardest, but overall, I think that Tyson takes the cake in this one. So anyway, I'm going with Tyson knockout in round 5. So anyway, I'll be back next week for more. I'm out of here. Peace.